and it's 6 p.m. UK time. This is the spiritual discussion program. I'm Saad in southeast London, and very shortly my colleague Greg. The aim of this show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. My colleague Gregory is now with us. Hello, Gregory. How are you doing? And how is the weather where you are?
Well, one is fine. It's still a bit cold and bright.
Okay, same in London. I'll call it cold as well, yes, and bright. A few clouds out in the sky. So, welcome, listeners, to the Spiritual Discussion Program. Every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is to give unselfishly where help is needed. To give unselfishly where help is needed. This topic, it's a quote or part of a quote from a lecture in the Grail Message, which is titled Awake. So I think I better say the full quote or the full sentence in where it comes from, and that is to give unselfishly, to help where help is needed, and to understand both the suffering and the weaknesses of your fellow men means to receive, because it is the simple and the true way to the highest. I'm going to repeat it a bit later, so I know it's quite a long quote, but that's why I kept it very simple. And so the topic, again, to remind everybody, is to give unselfishly where help is needed. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. And if you're outside of UK, I'm going to put say it differently today. So it is +44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message, in the Light of Truth, by Abdushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Uprushing. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing from one lecture to the other. So keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with seven seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for our discussion tonight is to give unselfishly where help is needed. I'll repeat that, to give unselfishly where help is needed. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. And if you're outside of UK, it is +44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. Gregory and our listeners, as usual, I like to look up the meaning of the words in the topic in the dictionary to get, let's say, some sort of concept in our minds. What is the meaning of this topic? So the first word I would like to check, or I checked, is give. And I've got two meanings in the dictionary. First one, to offer something to someone, or to provide someone with something. Gregory, how's this meaning?
Well, thanks. That's very helpful.
Okay, that's good. That's good. The next one, I think it's a bit specific if I'm honest. It says to pay someone a particular amount. So, yeah, I don't know what you said about this one, Gregory.
I don't think we should consider that at all.
Okay, yes, let's leave that out. Yeah. In fact, maybe from future, I will dismiss some of the meanings which are irrelevant. Okay, so the next key word we have is unselfishly. And that in the dictionary it says, in a way that shows you're thinking about what is good for other people rather than yourself. Let me repeat that. Unselfishly, meaning in the dictionary, it says, in a way that shows you're thinking about what is good for other people rather than yourself. How's this one, Gregory?
Again, these expressions are helpful. The picture which um, comes up is that of something flowing away from the giver, from the individual to another in a helpful manner. That
Right.
picture is what one holds when it is said unselfish. That means that things are not held back but are passed on to others who need it.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And the next word I have looked up is help. And here, I think I'm going to dismiss the second one. It's just the one meaning I'm going to use. It says, make it easier or possible for someone, in brackets, to do something by offering one's services or resources. Let me repeat that. So, this is the meaning of the word help. Make it easier or possible for someone to do something by offering one's services or resources. How's that, Gregory?
That is also helpful.
Okay, let us continue. So the next word I have, which is the last word, in fact, well, again, to repeat, the topic for tonight is to give unselfishly where help is needed. So I just looked up the word need. So that one in the dictionary, let me make sure. I got three meanings. Let me see if they're. Um, yes, I will repeat. I'll say them all three. So the first one, it says require something because it is essential or very important rather than just desirable. Let me repeat
Essential is helpful.
it. Okay, good, good. Yes. And the next one I have for this meaning of the word need, it says expressing necessity or obligation. And let me give a couple of examples I've given. One of them is, need I say more? So that is, and the other one is, uh, I need not have worried. So, Gregory, so the actual meaning is for the word need is expressing necessity or obligation. How's
That
this
is
one?
right.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And the last one, it says be necessary. Yeah. Let me give an example of that. It says, lest you, even more than deeds. No, no, let me leave. I think these quotes, some of these quotes are a little bit complicated to follow. So let me. So the third meaning, Gregory, I have for the word need is be necessary. How's that?
Yes, that's also helpful.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, in our modern times, we have AI around. So I always like to check what AI says. Not that we have to trust it or rely on it, just to, it's like a matter of interest what it comes up with. And then that's a point of discussion for us. Okay, so I actually put the phrase, the whole topic, the phrase in the topic, which is to give unselfishly where help is needed. And this is what it came up. To give unselfishly, which means helping others without expecting anything in return. You can embody let me go point by point, Gregory. It's better to do that. So to give unselfishly, which means helping others without expecting anything in return. How good is that one, Gregory?
That is helpful also in the meaning, overall meaning.
Right. Okay. And then it says you can embody. I think they're giving some. That's not let's say main point. Let me continue. So then it talks about certain principles or key points. Um, I think it's good to look at them. So the first one, it says empathy and compassion. Um, so that says put the needs and the well-being of others before your own, driven by genuine care and a desire to make a positive impact. So that's empathy and compassion. So I'll just repeat that: empathy and compassion. Put the needs and the well-being of others before your own, driven by genuine care and a desire to make a positive impact. Gregory, how's that meaning for this phrase?
These are helpful phrases, helpful bits,
Yes.
but one should not spend too much time on them because the intuitive meaning which we wish to take away from it and apply to the particular scenario and that which will be helpful to us personally, if we keep going to some of these things the way AI sees it, then it becomes partial. It's not all embracing as we wish it to be.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up. So I will now abandon this, how can I say, method to look at through using AI. So let us now continue it in a different line. Now, again, just to repeat, the topic for tonight is to give unselfishly where help is needed. So now the question, there are many questions that will arise, Gregory. Um, how should one help? That's what I thought of first. Yeah, I almost, Gregory, I feel like putting a scenario, and then it's easier to look at it and then come up with something to say about it, because otherwise so general, uh, you know um, it might be difficult to you know make sense of it. So let me think of something. So let's repeat. So give unselfishly where help is needed. So in a way, the first thing is where help is needed. So I'm thinking now there's two places in my mind, or two type of scenarios I have in my mind. uh, One where, let's say, a country, let's say there's some disaster or something happens in a country and other countries come to their aid. That's one scenario. Another scenario I see is where um, that is within, let's say, community, or yeah, within your own, let's say, area, or even when I say the word area, it could be just your own family. Um, there may be a need, and then the help would come from within that family or relatives. So let us look at that. But I must admit, we are saying to give unselfishly where help is needed. I will say most of the where it involves countries helping other countries, it is hardly unselfish. There's always some condition involved. So let me leave that particular type of scenario. Let's look at the family. Not that there's no condition with family, but at least hopefully there can be some unselfish help given when there's a need there. So um, now, yeah, let me start with this, Gregory. When you have, let's say, a need or a request from within the family, is it an obligation by from to help within that family? Is that automatically because it's the same family? Should there be an obligation? And let me try to distinguish it. Maybe I should include relatives as well in this, because I'm thinking of adults helping adults, because obviously children, they are dependent on their parents and other adults. So let's talk about adults. So, Gregory, is there obligation between family and relatives to help each other when there's a request, let's say, from one of the family members?
By family, you are referring to so-called close relatives or blood relations. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
Maybe if one looks at a scenario to describe that, that word family only implies that there are relationships which need to be considered. Whether that relationship is that of bloodline or friendship, or some other thing, there must be some relationship. What the scenario one wishes to consider is that if you take, for instance, cars plying a particular route from one, say, point to the other, or from one village to the other, and you now have that there was some heavy rain, and now either a bridge has collapsed or there's some catastrophe along the line. You yourself, you are in need, so also others who use that particular route. The question is that what should one do? Is Are you going to wait for help to come from your so-called AA or whatever, or from the government, when you need to be in the other side in the shortest possible time? In that scenario, you find people come out. That's one for all and all for one. For you have a scenario where there is a challenge, which challenge has an impact on everyone who is connected. Therefore, the individual comes forward to offer his services, one way or the other, to help to alleviate or to find a solution to the challenge which they now encounter. So, in that scenario, you move forward to provide a solution with the others, because you can sense that the need is there. And this is a scenario where selfishness is not, in fact, is far away from the individual. So to give unselfishly, the basic picture one sees here is that there is one for all and all for one. After all, we're all on this earth, and you cannot separate one scenario from another scenario and say, oh, because it's raining in one region and it's not raining in your region, and therefore you can enjoy yourself. You may find that what has happened in one region of the earth has caused so much devastation, which, if you trace it carefully, has an impact on those places where there was no devastation. Therefore, the need is always there to respond in such a manner to ensure that that challenge is contained by offering your talents, your know-how to deal with this particular challenge. Again, one could look back, and there was the time of the COVID. So there are so many scenarios where one can learn from this, that to give of one's services, of one's talents, selfishness is far removed from it. For the human personalities on earth, there are connections, there are relations. That's which has been stressed again and again, one for all and all for one, is no mean saying. It's very important.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer, and how you looked at this scenario in a broad way rather than very specific way. Oh, there's a need by one relative or something. you have looked at it as a much broader than that need for a community or nearby, let's say, not necessarily next to you, next door. So showing that we must be open to give help, uh, you know, uh, let's say wider than what might some people may consider that, oh no, he's not my neighbor, I don't need to worry. But no, next door doesn't just mean, neighbor doesn't just mean the one next door to you. It can be a bit beyond that. Now, one of my uh, colleagues who also helps send questions or make write questions, she sent me some questions as well. And this first one is very similar, Gregory, to the one that you just responded to, but I will just share it. It says, by the way, just my other colleague, her name is Harriet Hoppe, Harriet Jarvis Hoppe. So she sent me, how to be a good Samaritan in times of true need. So, Gregory, I don't know if you want to say something to this point, or how to be a good Samaritan in times of true need.
The need is always there. For those who are vigilant and alert in spirit, many can already see the need. However, you have scenarios where people are oblivious. They, in their inner attitude, they do not see any connection. They want to see a complete breakdown, and then it will be services which is offered to others such that they will be rewarded through praises. The need has always been there. And that being the case, you will now have, whether the person is from whatever community, whatever tribe, whatever nation, Jew or Gentile, Muslim or non-Muslim, all these things do not count at all. Again and again, it has been stressed. In any community, that community could be that of the human personalities who are striving after self-consciousness. That need is there of one for all and all for one. For only through the coming together, only through the union of their abilities and capabilities would you have that there is resonance. Just like you have in the case of music where there are different instruments, playing them side by side, it then produces beautiful music. That is what is expected of the human personalities. Not one above the other trying to look down on others, but striving to grasp what the challenges are. After all, they have come from the same origin. They started as unconscious spirit seed grains. And to become self-conscious, they had to travel out. And here in the world of matter, they needed to mature step by step until they come to that scenario where they blossom. That means all the talents which have been hewn into them through the laws of creation, in the process of putting these into use, they have matured to the extent to become self-conscious. And in that particular case, in that state, they are of use not only to themselves but also to others. And in helping others, in assisting others to build up instead of ignoring them, that process of assisting, they themselves draw strength which is available in creation and apply themselves rigorously. They can also help others, just as those who are more mature than themselves help them. So the whole thing is so very clear that there is no debate about it. There is no need to say this one is a good Samaritan, this one is this, and all these are just earthly, divisions which tend to hold the individual back. In the time of the COVID, there was no hiding place. It spread around. And therefore, you had that nations had to work together. The same thing happens when there are catastrophes. People have to come together until the individuals that make up the population of the earth sit down to realize that there are no separate paths, that they need to work together. Whatever religion, whatever beliefs they hold on to, unless they get this very well, that it is one for all and all for one, then progress, spiritual progress, spiritual maturity becomes certainly impossible.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for the uh, not only your answer, but the picture you're showing to us about, as you say, all for one and one for all. It's a particular way we have to stand or have an attitude in regards to helping our fellow human beings, um, and not looking at, oh, this one is this way, or this community, or another one is a different community, so they're not the same, and all that. Uh, Making division and then deciding, okay, I don't help this one, I help that one. Rather, it is, like you say, all for one and one for all, which is very obviously noble and, how can I say, high level way of looking at things, rather than just the narrow way that maybe most of the time we look at things. So thanks a lot for that. I'd like to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is to give unselfishly where help is needed. To give unselfishly where help is needed. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is plus 44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. We are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic, which is to give unselfishly where help is needed. And after the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space to give unselfishly where help is needed. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our other past shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM /radio/bless radio 1, that's the number 1 there. And I just want to let the listeners know that this topic tonight, to give unselfishly where help is needed, is a partial quote from a lecture in the Grail Message titled Awake. And to give the sentence, where this is the full sentence of the quote, is to give unselfishly, to help where help is needed, and to understand both the suffering and the weaknesses of your fellow men means to receive, because it is the simple and the true way to the highest. Now, Gregory, we talked about helping and, who to help, of course, with the, you could say, the motto, all for one, one for all. So this makes it clear it's not about one group of people or one specific, community or whatever. It is all for one and one for all. So that's clear. Now, the next question that arises is the type of help, because now again it depends on the scenario, but there's a famous saying which is, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So let me repeat that. This famous saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Now, Gregory, so what sort of help should one give to somebody in need?
Using what you yourself just read out, one would say both. That means, if possible, provide resources to sustain that individual and subsequently show the individual how to proceed to ensure he himself or herself knows how to sustain that which you yourself just initiated. Why is it so? because that is the only way you will strengthen that in particular individual such that he himself or herself in his further life in proceeding from one place to the other would have taken that example, and when he encounters a similar scenario just as he himself was, he would know what to do. So in that case, there will be continuity, and before too long, all that is inferior will be eliminated.
Thanks a lot again, Gregory, for this answer. And what it shows is that people are looking for, let's say, a solution to a problem or situation. And let's say people say there are two options to that problem. But what the way you have said it, Gregory, there's something, let's say you might have to deal with immediately, and that's like a short term. And then there's the long term. So, like we say this saying, give a man a fish to feed and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So, like you said, both would be needed. But maybe in some cases, it would be needed both because, yes, somebody's in need, you help them immediately, but that's not the end of the story. There's more to needed, and of course, um, which is to continue afterwards. So there's a short term, and then there's the long term, and both are part of the reality. So just like we said earlier, all for one and one for all. Is it for one day, or is it for the lifetime? You can say. So of course, again, common sense tells you it must not be for one day. Otherwise, what happens the next day? So it must be for long term. So that's thank you for that. Um, okay. Now let me look at this again. I'm trying to mix some questions here. So I've got another one. This from Mrs. Hoppe here. Okay, so how can we tell the difference in a world where scamming has become a literal sport? So, Gregory, yes, so let me say that again. How can we tell the difference in a world where scamming has become a literal sport? So, Gregory, yes, in this world, people pretend some people pretending they need help, but actually they just want to steal. So, how do we, decide or determine if something is a genuine need for help or something else, not a genuine?
Again, the need is there to examine and weigh the type of help which is required. The little things which are connected to the type of help reveals the nature or reveals how one needs to respond to these challenges which have come up. It is most of the time is that people they just see something and superficially without any reflection jump into it. For as with any scenario, through experience, through practice, the individual who wishes to help, who wishes to be of assistance, will get to know through the little things which are connected with this particular challenge, whether that challenge is real or genuine or not. For when, imagine a scenario where people come and they quote some figures which are completely irrelevant. You already know that there is something in quotes, like they say in the UK, dodgy about it. But it calls for the vigilance and the alertness of whoever needs to be of assistance, the spiritual vigilance and the alertness to be able to differentiate through experience that which is genuine and that which is not genuine. If, however, one is carried away without asking real questions, then it will be that the individual that wishes to help is only carried away through superficiality. In these matters, it is not superficiality one must consider. One needs to look or need to examine, need to observe a bit more deeply in the little things connected with the challenge. Before too long, that individual, if he or she practices using his or her intuition in considering these little things which are connected with the challenges, that person will now develop an impartial judgment, standing in the middle ground, not just falling for it or rejecting it, but standing in the middle ground with a neutral attitude. Only from that position can an individual perceive to a large extent that which is genuine and that which is not genuine. Then, over time, over different experiences, he or she will become strengthened enough to know how to respond with the right solution.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. Um, there's something. Okay, I'm trying to think of the. There's a few questions I can put, and I'm just thinking what is suitable for next question. Yeah, let me come up with this one, Gregory. So, Gregory, when you're offering or giving help to another, should the one who's giving the help, should they put conditions on the help? So now I'm just trying to think of what type of condition they might be. So you know, because it could be, let's say you give somebody help, Gregory, and they don't use it properly, whether it's deliberate or not, they don't use it properly, and then you're thinking, why should I give any more help? So, Gregory, so should there be any condition on when you give help?
Of course, there are always conditions when help is given. The, the challenge here is what type of condition? He or she who feels it, who experiences it, knows it. If you yourself haven't experienced a particular scenario, that experience which leads to compassion, you will lack that experience in your judgment. Of course, there are always conditions, but the question is, what type of condition? It depends on the scenario. If you find someone who genuinely is ill, or you don't even know You find someone who is ill, whether it's genuine or not, you're not sure. The question is that what should you do? But seeing physically that this person is unwell, no doubt about it. In that scenario, you might say, well, this is the type of help I can give. You cannot give to someone that which you yourself do not have, or that which you lack, you cannot give to anyone. Therefore, when you wish to help, you can only help through that which you yourself have. So if you have the knowledge, if you have the empathy, not just brain substance feeling pity, one in this case, one is referring to spiritual empathy. And if in the past you yourself have had to undergo such scenarios where you are deprived or you were deprived of the means to sustain yourself through one way or the other, and subsequently you yourself haven't experienced it, you've gone through the passion, so you have automatically developed or generated compassion. Do not forget, things do not approach you in an arbitrary manner. Far from it. That which approaches the individual is to challenge the individual's strength to know how to respond to scenarios. So, in that particular case, to a large extent, over time, you must have built that internal capacity to judge, to say, fair enough, this is what I have. There are some who can only offer soothing words. There are some who can offer so called money. There are some who can offer assistance in the case of health. There are some who, through their constitution, are able to perceive much, much further and can advise an individual, please watch out for this so that you will not fall into this scenario. Watch out for that so that you don't fall into this scenario. For these are likely to be the root causes which you yourself do not yet know. All these are helps. So when help is mentioned, one should not consider only material things as helps, but that's advice. That's intrinsic, genuine advice, which is considering the welfare and the well being of the individual who is challenged. In that particular scenario, the advice which is given, sometimes this advice only presented itself to the giver of the advice at that very moment. For the giver who opens himself or herself is able to perceive that which it needs to give to another. There is that dynamic nature of giving and receiving. Giving in the sense that that solution which the giver now wants to suggest to another, that solution, if he himself or herself is genuine, must have received it from someone higher whom he or she could not have seen, but it just occurred to that particular person. And in that case, is able to pass on that advice. That goes a very long way. And that is a long term solution as compared to the short term solution.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer you've given. You gave the answer saying, yes, you may not know. When you give help, the person will be able to use it properly. And you yourself, out of sympathy or compassion, give that help. And there are things that you know and the things that you don't know. So the idea is to give unselfishly, and what will happen is, is the other person's they have to do what they do. So you can't control that side. Yeah, but you said there are conditions, of course. So we, and you give people time, and in this time you can observe if something is working or not working. Not, of course, a few minutes. It has to be observed over some time to actually be able to make a proper assessment. So yes, so thank you for telling us, giving this answer. Now, I've got another question again from Mrs. Hoppe, which is saying, why, when it is absolutely visible to all, one and all, that a person or persons are in desperate need, do they either still refuse the help offered? So let me repeat that, and I think I'm going to say it in my own words after that. So why, when it is absolutely visible to one and all that a person or persons are in desperate need, do they either still refuse the help offered? I'm just going to say like that. So Gregory, I'm going to say it in my own words because I didn't follow it immediately. So Gregory, what I hear here is there's somebody in need, which everybody can see that they are in need. But the person, when you come forward to offer your help, they refuse that help. So the person who needs help has refused your offer of help. So the question is, Gregory, why? Why does it happen when you offer as somebody who wants to help to another, and they are really in need of help, or in fact it says desperately in need of help, they still refuse the help?
Thanks for this particular question because it is fundamental in the recognition that many a person has cultivated. Consider the scenario in which spiritual help is concerned. Man is of spirit, which spirit, in order to experience here in the world of matter, here on earth, needs the physical body. And in using the physical body, is able to gather experience, hopefully, if it is passed on to the spirit is able to make use of these experiences and mature. So that which is paramount is the spiritual help, the spiritual assistance. Now, go out as Christ did and present to individuals speak about spiritual things, speak also about material things. Stress that the spiritual things are of paramount importance, and man is in need, in dire need of that which is spiritual to understand it right. Approach them and, for instance, express to them, show them a walk, which walk explains what spirituality is, which also explains what nature is, what lies behind nature, what their tasks are, because they themselves are not open to that which is spiritual. They may ignore it, or they may just pass you by, because no challenge has hit them which will shake their standing, such that they are now forced to open up to grasp that spirituality comes first. If, however, they are unwell in health, in their physical health, and that hits them very hard, they may open up to that which has to do with the health of the body. If, however, they are hungry and they need food, they may open up to receiving help with that of physical food, because that has an impact which they themselves can easily recognize, because they have not built themselves to know what spirituality entails, and that they must make the effort, passing on to them that which is of nobility, which looks at the whole thing rather than the little things. They will reject it. In fact, they may fight you tooth and nail. For some, only when they themselves have crossed over where the physical food is unnecessary, only then may they come slightly to an understanding. There are some who do not even open themselves. Now you can imagine a scenario. Here we are discussing that which is spiritual. Were you to go out and explain that that which we are discussing, the Grail Message, is the living word. It is that which the individual needs, here or hereafter. Many will shut their ears, will close their eyes. What can you do? The individual that wishes to help must first understand the challenges of these people. Unless he or she understands what their challenges are, you cannot help. For many have become so dense and they hold on to that which is only perceptible to their five senses, if at all. So it all depends on the maturity and the recognition of the individual. Only towards the end of their earth life, which can come at any time, only then will they start having premonitions. For in that scenario, the spirit is gradually detaching itself from the physical body, and in that case, they are a bit open. So, the question which you asked is a very profound question. The help which the individual needs, not only helps granted in form of advice, but also considering that which that individual need in the world of matter and outside the world of matter, for also the beyond. So the giver of the help will have to adapt itself to understanding the suffering, the weaknesses, and the strength of those that need to be helped. That is the task of what the true helper has to deal with.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer and explanation and the picture you've painted for us, regarding helping another when, trying to understand understand when when somebody accepts help or rejects help, why it can be. So, because it might feel, oh, the person is in need, and yet they say no, they don't want help. So it sounds illogical, and yet there's something we have to respect. Each person has the freedom of free will to say yes or no if they want to be involved or not involved, or accept an offer or reject the offer. So, and that's what we human beings have to realize. So thank you for that. Now, listeners, I want to remind you that this is Bless Radio, and this is the Spiritual Discussion Program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time on Tuesdays. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is to give unselfishly where help is needed. To give unselfishly where help is needed. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is +44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And you can also contact us on the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. We are also broadcasting live on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is to give unselfishly where help is needed. And when the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to the recording of this show again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is to give unselfishly where help is needed. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our past shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.fm/radio/bless radio 1, that's the number 1 there. And just to remind you, the topic that we're having tonight, which is to give unselfishly where help is needed, that is a quote from the lecture in the Grail Message called Awake. And the full quote is to give unselfishly, to help where help is needed, and to understand both the suffering and the weaknesses of your fellow men means to receive, because it is a simple and the true way to the highest. Now, Berkeley and listeners, I would like to share a story, it's personal, but not personal to me. Somebody shared with me, so I'm not going to reveal their name and too much detail of that, but I want to share it today as an example of this, what we are talking about, to give unselfishly where help is needed. So this is, let's say, scenario is set, let's say, in the olden times, let's say 50 years ago, and I mean by olden times, in a, let's say, a country where, I'm going to say a country from South Asia, where the country is not so well off, and the people I'm talking about come from a village. So what happened here is and in these places they do what they call arranged marriage. I'm talking about 50 years ago, so the arranged marriage of today is a bit different than in those olden times. Even the two people getting married, they wouldn't even meet beforehand. The parents would decide. That is the old style of this arranged marriage. So in this particular scenario, there was basically a man who was, let's say he was already arranged to be married to someone, and then he decided he didn't want to go ahead. And then that's his choice. And so that was, apparently they were even engaged. That's what was the scenario. Anyway, that was called off. And then the rest of the family, maybe the parents were not alive, but the brothers of this person decided, oh, we need to get him married quickly, especially because this person was working and living abroad and earning money there. And they thought if he goes back to that country, and let's say in the West, he wouldn't be, he might not want to marry or something. So something like that might be in the family member's head. So I'm just going a little bit round and about. Anyway, they now found somebody else to marry. So this is a man being married to a lady. And this lady, incredibly, was in the same family or relatives as the one that the person was engaged to. And it was done at a very short, how can I say, without any, done very, we could say abruptly or very quickly. And as I said, in those days, people don't have too much choice. So now the new lady was now told about this agreement, uh, let's say, but she was not consulted about it. She was just told that's what's going to happen. And let's say she didn't protest at that point, or she never protested, in fact. Uh, anyway, and she went ahead, and the two people got married. And there's a further point I want to say in that. So that I told you the other person was working abroad in the West, and when he brought, so the normal thing would be to bring your wife back to this, I'll just say UK to make it simple. So to bring the wife to UK, and that's where they would settle and have the family. However, this family had a different idea, or the relatives had a different idea. They said, oh, let the wife stay here back in the same where you are or now. Let the husband go and keep working abroad and send money down to help the rest of the family to make progress in the family. And at that moment, they didn't know how long it will last, but it lasted for 10 years. So the husband and wife, you could say, well, they're not living together for 10 years. That doesn't mean the husband never saw his wife. He came every 2 years or so. Anyway, the point is, that's the sacrifice this wife made on top of, let's say, somebody that her husband had rejected, which was from her own family. So this had caused a lot of tension. I'm giving a long story, but I want to build the picture. This caused a lot of tension, and this is a sacrifice being made with agreement of the parties involved in it. And then after 10 years, they said that all the members said, okay, you have given in plenty of support to us financially, and you should now join your own husband. And in the meantime, some children had been born, but let's keep that to the side. So then the husband and wife were together after 10 years living together in UK. So Gregory, what I want to ask is, that was an enormous sacrifice. First, there was, let's say, something done without really a proper agreement, let's say, which, and by the way, I want to give a bit of age so that people get the picture. So the lady we are talking about, who became the wife, she was just 17 years of age when she got married. So yes, well, some countries, they will say this is a child, other countries, no, that's okay to get married at that age. But the point is that she was not consulted. It was a deal agreed and went ahead. But there was a lot of tension within this family because, let's say, I don't know if it's a sister, but somebody else within that family was rejected. And so that has been a cause of tension. And somebody who was agreed to marry was not asked about it. So obviously that was not very, how can I say, nice. I don't know what the word I should use here. And then on top of that, there was 10 years of sacrifice, which the wife accepted it, without any, I'm going to say, bitterness. There's more to the story, Gregory, because this happened like 50 years ago, like I say, maybe more than 50 years ago. Let's say 50 years ago, just for the sake of it. And then the wife never brought this issue up until, let's say, near her old age. She was not showing bitterness, but she said this was she cannot forgive. She said the wrong has been done here, that she was, made to marry without her say so. And of course, she went along with it, but she said this was a wrong. And in fact, those people who made the decision, they had now passed on. So it's not something that she could do anything about anymore, but she accepted it. And in that culture, there's this thing that if you speak up, that's a disrepute to the family. So Gregory, if you're getting the point of what I'm trying to say, there's a tradition of the olden times that people have, let's say, gone through something which is not quite right. They've gone through it, but they can't forget what happened. And they've been keep their mouth shut. and then in the end, as I say, in old days, they bring it up when it's like the time has already passed. So I don't know if you could call that bitterness, but the point is, Gregory, something wrong was done, right? Whether it was to help, because whatever people thought they were giving help in this way, but you could say certain principles were not followed, which is respect of the individual, you know, um, due to old times traditions, whatever, because they say, oh, the men make the decisions, or whatever the tradition happened to be. So, Gregory, when this type of things happen, and it's not, let's say, or this one is, let's say, more of a rare case because of the extra sacrifice that was on top of it, uh, how can one, how can I say, live with that or handle that? Because the wife kept her mouth shut all this time. Only at old age she bring out this point when the people have already passed on who made the decision. So, and there was, by the way, the relationship between husband and wife was not affected in this matter. Uh, they were, together, how can I say, genuine relationship there. It's just the decision that was made initially, which and then the second one after that. But the first decision was not, let's say, done right, Uh, and that there's a, let's say, unhappiness. Maybe that's an understatement uh, of this. What happened, and Gregory, what I'm pointing to, it had a long-term effect, bitterness in the family and disagreements in the family, and as I say. So, Gregory, how can one handle this type of, let's say, wrong?
Well, thanks for these questions. It turns out to be very long. The facts have to be considered. The facts in accordance with our reference framework through which all that exists rests. In the first case, you will find that you have a scenario in which the permission of one who is to go into a union was never sought. That builds up bitterness, even if it is suppressed. Those who have been responsible for such in deciding for others without their consent, that is taking something from someone without his consent. That's more like stealing. That is terrible. Those who have been stakeholders in that, the reciprocal activity will strike them here on earth or hereafter. The one who had been violated, who now getting closer to her departure point on earth, now is free to reflect, and in her reflections finds that a wrong was not even corrected. Just as there are good customs in societies, there are also terrible and bad customs. But for the one who has been wronged, such experience should stay with her such that she is able to use such experience in advising others and not acquiesce to the challenges which others face. For strictly speaking, parents have no jurisdiction at all on the choices of partners of their children, just as they, parents, stepped away from their parents in order to select a choice for their studies. They themselves decided this is what they wish to do with their studies. Now they should know that their children have that intrinsic right to decide where they need to go, what they wish to follow. And therefore, the wife they wish to have. If, however, the man or the woman decides to get married or not to get married, that is her choice. Because the free will of the individual must never be annulled on any occasion. Only what the individual has decided through its free will, only that will bring its benefits or reciprocal activities which are not healthy for it. That individual must be permitted to choose. So you will find the scenario is very common where either governments force people to accept that which they themselves are not convinced of, which they themselves have not experienced, they have not prepared for. Like you said, the person was just 17. Such a person must be a child. Whether it be done by government or being done by parents or be done by society, wrong is wrong. For any society or for most society, they do not wish others from other society to impose upon them. They will go to war. Why then do they impose on others? That which is granted to you for your benefit, for self-development. It is not a rocket science that you yourself, in your activities, must learn to grant it to others, such that that individual, being granted the support, will develop his or her abilities, her talents, to the benefit of all. Any suppression of that ability to decide is wrong. Like has been stressed, the one who had suffered from such now realizes that which has been taken away, which has been suppressed, that hurt. If she opens herself aright and makes a vow to herself never to impose such on others, then in reciprocal activity, she herself will be honored because she now understands, she now knows what that hurt is.
Thanks very much for that, Gregory. Um, what you have said, I shared. I had the same sort of discussion with the person who is related to this wife, and in the story, and he was also trying to help her to see it this way, but unfortunately, or whatever the word is, she could not forgive, or let me say forget. She cannot forget, of course. That was correct. You can't forget when something like that has happened to you. That makes sense. I wasn't quite clear if she wanted to forgive. I think she couldn't quite. I think she probably wanted this to be acknowledged, But of course, the tradition, what I'm saying, Gregory, there's all these things that happened like 50 years ago when there was a different type of society. In the modern world of today, they wouldn't do that, or let's say unlikely to do that. And even that sacrifice of 10 years of, I was told the husband was sending like 90% of his income, or let's say very significant amount of his income, to the family down in this other country, from UK to the other country, all to help his, let's say, brothers, that family. And that it was a big support, and it definitely helped them, and they acknowledged that. They're grateful for it, uh, and I think so. That was and this is a very rare for anybody to give this sort of amount of money, and for 10 years it's also very rare. So that was a massive sacrifice for sure. But there was a decision at the beginning, which is the one that. So that was a mutual agreement, even with the wife agreeing to that 10 years, even though it was not known how long it was going to be. But the initial one was the most, I don't want to use the word bitter, but the one that was painful, let's say. Uh, and they bore it, in silence, uh, until this old age. That's when it had to somehow surface. Um, as I said, by that time the old people had gone; they've all passed on, so there are no more to talk to about this issue. So yes, but it's what it shows, Gregory. There are, what I want to ask on it, what you have said, Gregory. We know the principles of freedom that must be there for every human being, and they are being broken, not from only 50 years ago, probably even now. We see that today even. Um, and if you are young, Gregory, that's the issue. When you're older, yes, let's say, especially let's say you're a man, you're more independent. It's quite a different scenario. When you're a woman, you're dependent, you have your parents or whoever there around you. If you try to escape from that and say, no, I'm not accepting, you're cast out of the whole family. It's like a terrible outcome that can happen. So when you, Gregory, if you stand for your rights, if I can say that way, the the um, the result of that could be, let's say, more. Well, I don't know if I want to use the word disastrous, but it's going to be quite terrible outcome. Like an outcast, like I say. So one has to wonder: are you willing to pay that price, just for the sake of saying this is a wrong and I'm not accepting this wrong? Uh, you know. So Gregory, what can we say about this? Again, this is because it's a decision. You say, okay, I accept, wrong has been done, I'm bearing it, or I say, no, I don't accept it, and I'm going to, whatever consequences are going to happen, I will go with those consequences. Especially when you're young, Gregory, how can you stand on your 2 feet to make that type of decision?
You said when you are young, and that explains much. You're young because you really do not have experience in the cunning attitude of parents or relatives or societies. And therefore, you can be caught like a spider or like a fly in a spider's web, because you are dependent. And this dependency has only come about because even parents do not know what their responsibilities are. If they knew what their responsibilities are, they from the outset will nudge the individual towards self independence. So, in that case, you have that the parents have already failed and they are now pushing, particularly the female sex, into a corner where she cannot refuse. Were she to refuse, she will be pushed out, and therefore she has to fend for herself because she is young. However, only when you have an individual who is determined to stand on their own. Only when they cry out in desperate needs will help approach them such that they are able to find a way. In other words, where there is a will, there is a way. Just refusing doesn't mean there's a way already. Even at a young age, many already make up their mind where they wish to go, and even at that tender age, they are able to have an impact on their parents or on societies. Very true, it is very challenging because you have that the ethereal environment which have been woven by parents, by society, is so dense, is so corrupt, is so distorted that anyone who incarnates in that particular scenario finds it very difficult to make any headway. That is the reality. That, however, does not mean that that individual cannot struggle and subsequently free himself or herself. Sadly, it is the female sex that suffers terribly from this and still suffers, depending on the part of the world where some are not even allowed to go to school to articulate their capabilities. However, all help is still available for many who now know what these challenges are. If they hold firm, good volition directed towards such persons, they do not have to know these persons, but they hold a firm and good volition towards those who suffer from these particular scenarios. Then those who suffer from these scenarios, they are able to perceive some form of help, although they may not know where it is coming from. And in certain scenarios, such helps are accelerated, in which the individual finds himself or herself in a scenario where it becomes free. Such helps sometimes are mentioned as miracles. It is doable. Generally, for those who now realize what it is for those who are suffering in that scenario, the need is there to send the strongest good thoughts to such places. Then, before long, you will find those whose hearts are as hard as stone, who have a misunderstanding what the religious texts are referring to, may be softened one way or the other, and help will then reach those who need it.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer and the words you've given there. I'd like to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message, or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is to give unselfishly where help is needed. To give unselfishly where help is needed. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is +44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Also, we are broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1. Sorry, before I do that, I've forgotten something. There's another way you can contact us if you have any questions or comments. There's the website we are broadcasting. It is called Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. So that's Bless Radio 1, the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1. Again, that's the number 1. Space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show tonight, which is to give unselfishly where help is needed. And after the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of this show also on YouTube. So go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space, Grail Message, space, to give unselfishly where help is needed. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our past shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1. Now, we've covered a lot, with talking about family, tradition, and, scenarios where things are difficult, if not almost impossible, where you want to do the right thing, or some people are doing the wrong thing, and there are people trying to do the right thing, and they seem to be stuck in a very difficult situation. And as you said, Gregory, where there's a will, there is a way. Somehow things will work out. And it can also be that there's somehow you need to go through an experience, maybe because of the karma from a past life. One needs to redeem that and need to go through a scenario. However, your volition, your free will is always there. And as you said, Gregory, you can put out your thoughts, in a pure way, and then somehow that will have an impact in the, let's say, positive way. Trying to see let me look at this particular type of scenario, Gregory. What we've been talking up to now, Gregory, are, let's say, within, let's say, family or individuals or community. When we go to a more global scale, like countries, and can we use this same words to give unselfishly where help is needed? Because it doesn't seem, let's say, no, in the normal way, when countries give so-called help to another, that it is unselfish. Everybody has their self-interest. In fact, they say that when they want. I don't know if I'm talking about help in this particular scenario. It's usually with trade or some agreement. But when it comes to help, um, there may still be some maybe political agenda involved. So, Gregory, I want to ask: can this these words, to give unselfishly where help is needed, can that apply to countries as well, or institutions, or is that impossible?
These expressions are meant for individuals. It is individuals that form communities. It is communities that form nations. It is communities or individuals that form institutions. Therefore, since they are directed at the individual, and these individuals form institutions or nations, yes, it should apply to nations. As to whether they are genuine or not, the receiver of the help must intuitively strive to understand what lies behind it, must strive to understand what makes them tick. That means what lies behind the help which is being given. It is almost near impossible to find an answer to that, because since you have institutions that are made of men, these institutions are not AI, but they are made of men who have to consider all the different scenarios. There are some of them that will be genuine, and there are others that may not be genuine. So, yes, it applies to individuals who form institutions, who form nations, and therefore, depending on what lies behind why nations give help, you may find it varies from one place to another place.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. Um, I have another question now. When we want to help someone, should one advise or suggest? Yes. Yeah, should one advise or suggest? And maybe they might not be clear what I mean there. Advise is your, well, of course, the person may listen or not listen. I got it, but advise means you're telling them, like, this is what you should do. But suggest is only it is giving them an idea, which is leaving it to them. So, Gregory, so what is the best way to help someone? And this is, of course, I'm talking not in financial necessarily. Let me start it again. So, should one, Gregory, if somebody, let's say, comes forward to you asking for some question or some, you could say, I don't know whether to say, yes. So should one advise in a situation like that, or should one make a suggestion?
Both.
Okay. All right. That's good. All right. I like what you say,
Because
Greg. Yeah,
don't
go on.
forget, that individual still has to make a decision on what advice that has been given or on what suggestion it has been given. The free will is there to make a decision and say, I will go with this or go with that, or I go with both. So that individual must be permitted the benefit of both.
Okay, good. Good. Um, Now, I'm just looking again at the question Mrs. Hoppe sent, but I have a feeling that they were all related to the earlier question, so I'm going to leave them out for now. Let me see. Um, now, so what we have noted up to this point, Gregory's and listeners, that this phrase or this words to give unselfishly where help is needed is meant for the individual. Of course, it can be applied to more than one individual, like a group. However, it is meant as an individual. And then, as you said correctly, that is groups. They can make community, they can make countries, and so on and so on. And within that, they are, because they're still individual within it. Somebody may be genuine, like you said, or some may not be genuine. And so when we give help, we have to always take that into account. Now, going back to a marriage, um, as I gave an example, Gregory, earlier, the way the people's attitudes are or traditions are over the time they evolve. What was done, accepted in 50 years ago, is no more. That is rejected. Some, not everything. So when this is happening, let's say some of the difference of the olden times and the modern times. Let's say we're talking about, let's say, husband and wife having certain roles, which in today's time, maybe things are changing. Um, so let me ask it like this, Gregory. Is there meant to be like equality within a marriage? Let's say we're talking about husband and wife. Is there meant to be some equality there? Or what is it meant to be?
Strictly speaking, there is no equality in marriage, and there has never been, and there will never be. What you have in a union is complementarity. When people use the expression equality, they use it loosely. Ask yourself, is there any man who has a woman's womb able to carry a child for 9 months? Never. Therefore, why do people speak of equality? The activities of the woman and the activities of the man, they complement. They are not equal. Strictly speaking, the activities of the woman is more intense than that of the man. For as many people know, they like to score points. It is the woman that carries the child. It is the woman that takes care of the home. It is the woman that goes through the pain. It is the woman that brings up the child and supports the husband. Okay, the man goes out and does some work to bring some money home. And so what? Without the woman, would there have been a man? So when you only need to take some simple expressions, and then you would dismiss many interpretations of these expressions. For the activities of the woman is lighter but more intense than that of the man. And the activities of the man is coarser than that of the woman. But in joint activities, they form a home. That is what a home is. A place where you have joint activities, one for all and all for one. If that is taken into marriage, then many a thing will change. For the most common example which is used, since many are used to the game of football, that you have those who defend and who go on the attack to score goals. And then you have at the back another who keeps the goal. The activities of the goalkeeper, the activities of the skipper or the defenders, these activities, they complement, they are not equal. If you wish to try it, remove the goalkeeper and say, oh, it's not important. And let us see what happens. If you wish to try it, put the goalkeeper there, remove the strikers and the defenders, and see what others will do to you. So it is so much of common sense to know that the activities of the woman and that of the man, they complement in the support, like one for all and all for one. More of the task of the woman in the home, in society, in nature, and in creation. Many are advised to examine the work in the light of truth, Grail Message of Abdushin. There, all that the human spirit needs is revealed.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for those words. Now, dear listeners, I hope you've enjoyed the discussion tonight on the topic of to give unselfishly where help is needed. And this was a quote or part quote from the lecture in the Grail Message called Awake. And so to end the show tonight, I would like to read from this lecture, part of the lecture called Awake. An eternal law operates in the universe, that only in giving can one receive, where lasting values are concerned. Like a sacred legacy of its creator, this law deeply permeates the whole of creation. To give unselfishly, to help where help is needed, and to understand both the suffering and the weaknesses of your fellow men means to receive, because it is the simple and true way to the highest. And to will this seriously brings you immediate help and strength. By one single, honest, and ardent wish to do good, the wall which your thoughts have hitherto erected as a barrier is cleaved, as with a flaming sword, from the other side that is now still invisible to you. For you are indeed one with the beyond, which you so fear, deny, or long for. You are closely and inextricably linked with it. Try it, for your thoughts are the messengers you send forth, which return heavily laden with similar thought forms, good or evil, as the case may be. This actually happens. Remember that your thoughts are realities that shape themselves spiritually, often becoming forms outliving the earth life of your body. Then much will become clear to you. Thus it is quite rightly said, for their works will pursue them. Thought creations are works which will one day await you, which form light or dark rings around you, which you must traverse in order to enter the spiritual world. Neither protection or intervention can help in this, because the decision lies with you. Therefore, you must take the first step in everything. This is not difficult. It lies solely in the volition, which expresses itself through thoughts. Thus you carry heaven or hell within you. You are free to decide, but you are then irrevocably subject to the consequences of your thoughts, of your volition. You yourselves create these consequences, and that is why I exhort you. Keep the heart of your thoughts pure. By so doing, you will bring peace and be happy. I'm going to stop there. That was a section of reading from the lecture called Awake, which is in the Grail Message, in the Light of Truth by Abdrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing listeners a very beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic. Take care. Good night.